Hi everybody. So if you were following the market last year at all, the second half of the year, you probably heard a lot about interest rates. And you probably also heard that buyer demand really went down as rates impacted their buying power. Well, we are about a month into 2023, and the stalemate that was our market the second half of last year has loosened up quite a bit, and demand is starting to climb. We're seeing multiple offers on homes. We're seeing appreciation happen again. And now the story really is turning to inventory. So as buyers have jumped back into the market this year, what everyone is noticing is that there's nothing to buy. Buyers are eager and willing and able to move forward with a home purchase, and their sellers are not meeting them in the market and providing enough inventory for buyer interest at this moment. So with that in mind, we wanted to talk a little bit about inventory to provide you with a framework so that you can understand what are the main sources of inventory that impact our East Bay real estate market and what has happened to them over the last 6 to 12 months that has led to this point where there is nothing available for interested buyers to buy. In short, what are the main sources of inventory that we see impacting the East Bay market? Now, keep in mind, this is not an all-inclusive list. I'm not going into every single type of seller that is out there, but these are the larger pools of inventory for our East Bay market. Number one is trust sales. So that is people that have inherited a home and are putting it on the market to sell it. Number two is kind of moving up seller. So this is someone who owns either a starter home or a home that doesn't quite fit their needs. They've built up some equity and now they're putting that home on the market to sell it and move to a home that better suits their needs. Number three is retirees, also considered empty nesters in some regard. These are individuals that now are selling their home and often moving closer to family or moving to a smaller home or are moving close to skiing or other activities that they imagined that they would do in their retirement. So that's another source of homes on the market locally. After that is relocations. And these are individuals that are moving not for retirement, but another group that's moving for work or during the pandemic, a lot of moving to remote work and to different locations that better suited them. And then number five, which I won't spend a whole lot of time on, is investors. And I'm not talking big scale investors because we're really talking about the single family home market. These are the smaller scale investors that own a few single family homes throughout the area that, decide it's time to liquidate their portfolio and they put those homes on the market. So those are the five main sources that we see really truly impacting our market in the East Bay. And we're going to focus really on the top four and talk about what has happened to them in the last year that is kind of leading to the drastic reduction in inventory. Number one, trust sellers. This category of sellers or this pool for home sales they have no control over when they're going to inherit the home. There's no timing of the market. They are less impacted by fluctuations in market valuations. This is not something where those sellers have to squeeze every penny out of their home. And so we will still continue to see the typical number of trust sales hitting the market. This is not something that is directly impacting the level of inventory out there in the market. So that's an important thing to keep in mind is this is a pretty steady stream of inventory. It always has been. The one thing that will change is as market sentiments go down and sellers feel less secure about investing in renovations, what we will see is a lot of these trust sales will come on the market not as fully renovated as they had been during the peak of the market. It will be a really good opportunity for buyers out there to purchase a home that allows them to build a little bit of sweat equity and to put some elbow grease into those homes. So what I'm expecting is the same supply of trust sale inventory will hit the market, but it will be slightly different. It will be not as fully renovated as we'd seen a year ago, which will bring median price down a little bit because it will just shift the type of home that's hitting the market. So let's talk about that second group, that moving up seller. These, again, are the individuals that own a home and they need more space or they need a different location or a different school district. This group of sellers will be very heavily impacted this year. This is where we're probably going to see the biggest impact on inventory. And the reason for that is most of these homeowners have interest rates on their homes locked at 3% or less. They refinanced when rates dropped below 3%, which was fantastic for them, but it's a little bit of what we would call golden handcuffs. So making that move to another home, buying a bigger home, and also adjusting your interest rate from 3% to 5.5% is something that is a hurdle that is too hard to get over for a lot of these homeowners. So what we will see is there's going to be less movement in this group of sellers. People will start to say, it's not that small, we can live with it. Or the kids are going to be out of the house in just a couple more years. We can last 5 years. You also have a lot of people in this group that instead of moving and buying another home and drastically impacting their mortgage rate, they will add on or renovate or remodel. They will stay put instead of putting that home on the market. So this is actually going to have the biggest impact on our market, and it's not going to be a short-term impact because we don't foresee a future where rates are going to drop below 3% again. So this will be an interesting part of the market to watch, and this is one of the biggest reasons why inventory is down drastically right now. That third group that we talked about, which is the retirees or the empty nesters. This is an interesting one because oftentimes this seller is not very impacted by interest rates on the purchase side. Oftentimes there are decades and decades of equity built up in their home, and they are selling and moving down or out of the area and paying cash on the other end when they purchase. So interest rates are not going to impact them in the same way that moving up category would be impacted by interest rates. The thing that's going to impact this market, and I think this is a relatively short-term impact, but it will be the health of their portfolios. So when the economy gets a little shaky and people feel worried about the direction that the economy is going, often someone close to retirement will choose to delay retirement or choose to be just a little bit more conservative in their financial decisions so that they can weather this storm. And so what I expect to see happen is this category of inventory of home sellers will be down for the year of 2023 as people reassess and just sit back and wait and see what happens to the economy before they make any major life moves, before they move forward with that retirement plan that they had thought that they were going to put into place this year. And so it's going to be a very short-term impact. This group of seller will not delay the decision to retire forever. But we will see a period of time where there will be a reduction in inventory as retirees reassess and just make sure that their portfolio is healthy enough for them to move forward with their plans. Okay, so let's talk about that fourth category, which is the relocations. Pre-pandemic, relocations were a whole part of the economy. Someone would take a job in New York, their company would swoop in and relocate them, and their home would hit the market because they would need to move to accept this job on the other side of the country. Obviously, the whole thing changed when the pandemic hit and people were working remote. And so that relocation segment of the market was churning during the pandemic, but in a different way. What was happening is that people were moving to Montana or Texas or Tennessee, other places, and working remotely. And so we saw people put their home on the market here locally to move out of the area. That was a big story during the pandemic, the kind of movement all over the country. What's happening now is different. What we're seeing is as layoffs are happening both locally throughout the country and just globally in general, people are wanting to gravitate back toward job centers so that if they lose their job, they are in a location where they are well networked to get employed again. And so not only have we seen a pretty big reduction in home sellers, people selling their home to move out of the area, but we're actually starting to see buyers boomerang back or come back into the Bay Area, increasing buyer demand because they're realizing the value of remaining within job centers. So this will actually have an opposite effect. We're going to see inventory and from relocations drop drastically as people kind of stay put and wait to see what happens, while also demand will increase as buyers come back to main centers, urban areas like the Bay Area. That's a little bit of framework about inventory of homes for sale in our East Bay market. Of course, there is a whole lot else that we can talk about, but that is really a broad overview of how our inventory works and what's happening in the market. So why is inventory down so much? Well, of the 4 main categories that we talked about, trust sales, moving up sellers, retirees, and relocations, the first one is the only one that's really remained healthy when it comes to supply of inventory. That second one is for fairly long term going to be impacted by the fact that they have rates locked in at 3% or less. That second one, which is the retiree, is more of a short-term impact on inventory as they will kind of churn back to life and decide to move forward with their retirement after they kind of see where things level off. So that's a fairly short-term impact. And then that last one, relocations, I think that that's actually going to be somewhat long-term as people stop moving out of job centers and start coming back to these urban centers. So, we have a few short-term impacts happening on inventory and some long-term things happening. So it's, if you're a buyer out there, just expect that it will be a couple years before we really see inventory come back in its full force. And home sellers, now is a great time to sell. There's very little inventory. You have high buyer demand despite what the news is telling you. And homes are getting around 10 offers at this point. So if you put your home sale on hold because you wanted to wait and see what happened, well, I'm telling you, now is a fantastic time to sell your house. Move forward with earnest because you will catch a lot of buyer interest, a lot of offers, and incredible prices if you can jump into the market now.